go. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this session. In this session, I'm basically covering how to accelerate your team's machine learning journey with AWS DeepRacer. If you're keen on actually taking part in a DeepRacer workshop and having a look at actually creating your own model, there is the DPR101 course as well. There's 3 sessions during this summit, so please go and have a look at that one as well if you're keen on getting your hands on with actually coding and running a model on track as well. In this session, we will cover in terms of how you can get engaged as a customer with the DeepRacer team to host an event at your organization, kind of what those steps are and what's the importance of it. I am Francois van Rensburg. I'm a partner management solutions architect. Based on the accent, I'm not from the States. I'm actually from South Africa, but I do live in the States these days. So hopefully you do understand the accent as well. I do apologize if it's a bit rough at times. But yeah, thank you very much for joining this session. And let's kind of see how DeepRacer can help you accelerate your team's ML journey. So first off, let's just quickly cover the AWS machine learning stack. As you can see, it's quite wide with a lot of different services in this stack. And we'd like to break it down into basically 3 key components or 3 key areas. I'm going to start basically from the bottom first. And this is really for your advanced developers or data scientists, anybody that's kind of already built their own environments, maybe on-prem, have some experience, would like to customize environments, or kind of have their own settings and models and things they want to load already. What's nice about the AWS bottom frame or bottom layer here is we support all of the key frameworks. If we look at TensorFlow, Caffe2, MXNet, PyTorch, any of those are supported on the actual Amazon machine images. And the key thing here, or the most important piece, is we're taking away some of that heavy lifting by pre-building that into an Amazon machine image, which you can just deploy. Okay, speeding up that whole process for you. Once that image is deployed on an EC2 instance, you then have all of the capabilities you would have had in an on-prem environment to customize that image further with any custom setting software that you would like as a machine learning specialist. We also bring in this space some really key innovations as well. So firstly, if you look at our P4D instances, the strongest GPU-based instances in the cloud, really great for accelerating your training at a very low cost as well. As well as if you kind of followed reInvent last year, again, announced some custom chipsets that we've done. So AWS Trainium, again, a custom designed chipset specifically for training machine learning models. Again, trying to bring down the cost ratio by giving you more performance as well at the same time. Moving on from there, because we want to bring machine learning to all developers and data scientists out there, and not all of them potentially has the skill today to build their own environments. To speed up that process, we launched AWS SageMaker, Amazon SageMaker a few years back, and that's you would have seen has kind of progressed with some new features and capability over the last few years, making it really easy for developers to start building their own models, and taking away a lot of that heavy lifting, guesswork, complicated configurations, things like that, to make their lives easier to get into machine learning, build successful models that they can deploy within applications. Then moving to the top layer of the stack, this is for organizations that potentially don't have machine learning experts or developers that concentrate in that space today. Okay, this is services that's pre-built. So if we look at something like Amazon Lex, our managed chatbot, okay, or Polly, text-to-speech, or even something like Amazon Forecast, helping you forecast or predict customer churn or sales figures, things like that in future. Okay, these services are already built, pre-configured machine learning models that can just implement into applications that you have today, speeding up your time to market as an organization, making it really easy to improve your applications and their capabilities. But just having services is obviously not where it needs to stop. We still need to have or make sure that our developers or data scientists have got the skills as well to develop and successfully deploy models in your organization. So first, I'm going to have a look at just some inputs that we've made already. If we look at organizations or platforms like Udacity or Coursera or edX, there's a number of courses there that developers can go and have a look at today to help improve their skills. We also have the AWS training platform, where there's a number of machine learning courses which developers can follow and basically improve their skills within that platform as well. But just learning something theoretical as part of everyday life, the real value comes in when you get some hands-on experience as well. And in that space, there's a number of technologies that we've released, or a number of services we've released in the last few years as well. It started off with AWS Deep Lens a few years back, so making computer vision a reality for developers in a really simple, easy way. We then, a few years back, also launched AWS Deep Composer, giving developers access to generative AI, capability to deliver something there. And then what we're going to be speaking about today, AWS DeepRacer, really helping developers get into reinforcement learning. So let's quickly have a deeper look at DeepRacer and kind of what it does for developers. But really to kind of break it down into a small component, it's really the easiest way to get rolling with reinforcement learning. It is an educational device specifically designed for developers to get not just a theoretical experience in reinforcement learning, but also see in a real-world environment what that model can do or how it would perform. Okay, getting really a hands-on experience and not just, like I said, theoretical experience. Reinforcement learning is a great way to learn or to get into machine learning. It's an easy advanced machine learning technique where you do not need a lot of data to train your model on. Okay, so with very little data, it's able to make very complex decisions. So let's quickly have a look at the Evo, or the DeepRacer. The Evo is the new model. It's got a dual camera system. I've brought the original DeepRacer model with me today, and I will be on the stage afterwards. You can come have a closer look if you want to. But basically what it is a 1/18 inch monster truck remote control car as a chassis, on which we then plugged in an Intel Atom processor running the Intel OpenVINO platform. Okay, their implementation of OpenVINO. The new Evo model has got a dual camera system. So as you can see, this is the older model. It just has a single camera, as well as a 360-degree LiDAR, which is able to detect within about 12 meters from it. It has, 4 gig of RAM, 802 Wi-Fi, so it's wirelessly controlled, and has, runs Ubuntu 20.4 with ROS 2.0, or ROS 2, Robotic Operating System 2 on it as well, Foxy. Okay, so that's kind of the device. Like I said, afterwards, if you want to come have a closer look, I will have it on the stage, and you're more than welcome to come up. Just a little bit about how the actual DeepRacer works and what all of the components is from Intel that we basically use around this. So firstly, as I mentioned, it runs an Intel Atom processor and also runs the Intel implementation of OpenVINO. Okay, we use that implementation of OpenVINO to firstly, when a model is uploaded onto the car, send it through the OpenVINO model optimizer, which then delivers an optimized inference endpoint in that Intel Atom processor for us. Okay, so that's how we get to the inference, or the model that's doing the decision making. While the car's on track, it is not learning. Okay, so this model is already pre-created inside the learning environment on the AWS cloud, and then just downloaded and installed on the actual DeepRacer device. While the device is driving, making decisions on the road, it basically uses the deep lens camera on the front there. It takes about 15 pictures per minute, passes those through the media engine, which again passes it to the OpenVINO inference point, and kind of makes a decision based on the inference then, which is the machine learning model in this instance. Those results are sent to our control node, and the control node converts that into pulse width modulation, which tells the car's servos to turn left, turn right, speed up, or slow down. Okay, very simple component. All of that is running on the Ubuntu operating system with ROS installed. Okay. So why would you, as an organization, want to get involved in DeepRacer? Or why is it even important to get my developers trained in machine learning? So if we look at the World Economic Forum back in 2018, when DeepRacer was pretty much launched, there was a prediction that the world will need 58 million machine learning experts in the next few years. At that stage, through Tencent Research Institute, you would see that there was about 300,000 machine learning experts worldwide. So a really big gap between the requirement organizations had and the available skills at that stage. This obviously presented a bit of an opportunity as well as a bit of a challenge. Firstly, opportunity in terms of this big gap, we could fill that. The challenge being, how do you fill that in a really scarce skill environment? And hence the DeepRacer was born during that time. Okay, really trying to help, firstly, organizations and developers grow their skills and start closing some of that gap that's available there today. If we kind of have a look at what some of our customers are saying, so we've run a number of events at customers. I was fortunate enough to run summits in Cape Town, South Africa, where I'm from, but also a number of enterprise customer events. And as you can see, just in this instance, Moody's feedback in terms of how this impacted their organizations. We can also look at DBS in terms of what they kind of experienced through running one of these events. In all of these sessions, we generally get very positive feedback. Teams really, firstly, working together, but also learning some new skills around, firstly, reinforcement learning, but also a new understanding around machine learning and the impact it could have on that organization. And not just developers or technical resources, as you can see, also CEOs of large organizations. So let me quickly play a short video.
AWS DeepRacer events are the fastest way to get started on your company's journey to machine learning success. Developers of all skill levels, including those with no prior machine learning experience, can take advantage of DeepRacer by completing hands-on training to build reinforcement models to race for prizes and glory. The DeepRacer ecosystem teaches you the fundamentals of reinforcement learning with educational resources, an easy-to-use console, and real self-driving RC cars. Get started quickly with a virtual hands-on workshop and interactive tutorials walking step-by-step through the process. DeepRacer helps participants build their first reinforcement learning model in minutes. Go hands-on with the AWS DeepRacer console, an environment to train and evaluate your machine learning models. This console environment helps build the foundational skill sets to develop reinforcement learning for any use case. Once your model is created and trained, join your colleagues to compete in a virtual racing competition. Developers compete by submitting their best models to the track in an attempt to climb the leaderboard, win prizes, and claim bragging rights for being the fastest racer in your company. Shift your machine learning into high gear and contact your AWS representative today to get started with an AWS DeepRacer Enterprise event.
So what's involved in DeepRacer? So firstly, as I mentioned at the start of the session, go and have a look at the session DPR101. And you will be able to get real hands-on experience, firstly, in terms of a little bit of a deeper dive around DeepRacer itself, but also around building your first model. After attending that session, I would advise you go down to the expo hall, back right corner. You will find the DeepRacer tracks, and you potentially could see some of the racers partaking in the event today and tomorrow. Okay, if we look at the hands-on experience specifically that we're talking about here, firstly, we've got the DeepRacer car, which we kind of spoke about, but there's a few other components to the console and the process as well. There's a 3D racing simulator based inside the AWS console. Okay, this is where the car is trained, in a virtual environment, and we'll have a bit of a deeper look at the components of AWS that we use in that space. We then have the DeepRacer League, sponsored by Intel. So that gives general public or your resources an opportunity to partake in a global event where the winners can attend reInvent at the end of the year for a grand finale cup race. Okay, so tickets to be won there in that space. And then lastly, we've launched community races inside the console as well, giving the ability to create and launch your own private events. Okay, so this is free of charge, easy to, you can invite races to those events. As an organizer, you've got full control in terms of duration, time, who gets invited, who gets kicked out if somebody's there that shouldn't be there or leaves your organization. What type of racing you want to do. There's 3 different versions. We've got time trial, head-to-head, or object avoidance. You basically send out an invite to participants, and they can then join that racing, and you, like I said, can set the timeline that they've got to partake. We will cover a little bit more around that in the event planning as well. If we look at the simulator architecture, some key components here is, firstly, the DeepRacer console that's available on the AWS cloud. DeepRacer uses a number of key services, but 2 big ones in this instance. So first of all, AWS RoboMaker. So that is actually the service we use to create that virtual track where the DeepRacer is trained on, as well as if you are creating a community race or a virtual race, that is what generates that virtual environment for the car to race in. We then use Amazon SageMaker. This is to train the actual models. Okay, so all of the training takes place in SageMaker, and models, once they're trained, get saved down into Amazon S3. Okay, so that's the storage layer. We then use CloudWatch for all of your logging. Okay, so logging of events during training as well as during racing. And we are using Amazon Kinesis video streams to stream the video back to racers. So while that car is physically going around the virtual world, you are able to see what the car is seeing through its camera. Okay, that's all done through Amazon Kinesis video streams. And then lastly, once your model is trained and you're ready to take your model to the physical world, AWS DeepRacer is where you would be doing that in a live environment at a summit or a corporate event. So how does DeepRacer Events help you? DeepRacer Events have been seen as a really fun way and an engaging way to get developers, data scientists, executives, managers, everybody involved in a friendly team building, a little bit of competition event. Okay, all of the feedback we've received from corporate events is that it's been a great learning experience and really an eye-opener for developers and data scientists in terms of how easy machine learning could be. Also fostering some better understanding between teams in terms of what is really meant by machine learning, and then expanding horizons in terms of understanding what the potential capabilities within an organization could be for machine learning, how that can improve organizations' capabilities. It also has fostered a lot of opportunity in terms of experimentation. If you've got a fun and exciting environment that is free of any risk, okay, developers tend to experiment and try new ideas. And this is another additional benefit to DeepRacer that organizations can get by running an internal corporate event. There's basically 2 ways we could run an event at your organization. One is the physical DeepRacer event. Okay, so that's where it's an in-person racing or something like that. The second option is what we call the virtual space, so community races. Yeah, we'll have a look at both of these. So let's start just off with some virtual racing. So in the virtual race environment, as I mentioned before, organizers have the ability to set up races, invite participants, decide on the type of race, the duration of the race, so that it really fits a challenge for each and every type of developer or environment. Okay, so the 3 key differential, 3 options of racing here is head-to-head, so where you basically racing 2 races against each other. Object avoidance, where you train the car to avoid objects in the road. Or lastly, just time trial, where it's just basically based around who can get the fastest around the track. We also added 2 new features recently that makes corporate events and running an organizational account a lot easier. Previously, each racer needed to have their own AWS account because it was a single user per account. We've introduced multi-user account management. Corporate customers are now able to create a single AWS account, set budgets on that account, so manage the spend within that account, basically, and then set up rights for users to partake, to do training, model creation, things like that. Also gives a corporate customer the ability to basically clean up a single account once you don't need it anymore, don't want it anymore, or once the event is done, if this is a specific event just for your organization. Like I said, it gives also an additional dashboard, so you can very quickly track who's doing what, how much training, what's your spend at this stage, really giving you good insights into where you are with AWS DeepRacer and the spend that you're committing to it. The other option, or the other feature we recently launched, is AWS DeepRacer Live Community Racing. So with this, it gives you the ability to really quickly spin up a community event and stream that either to AWS Twitch or some other video platform if you want to. You also have the option again there to make it a public or a private event, just making it easier for customers who've got teams across the world or different time zones, or even just across the states in like east, west, something like that, that's a little bit disparate or far away from each other, the opportunity to still partake in racing and make it fun and engaging. It also, if you have a look at the DeepRacer documentation, provides all of the templates and video layouts that you need to make it a successful event. Okay, so making it really easy to start using that platform. If we look at the event flow, like I mentioned, it's basically got two key components. One is the training. Okay, so before you can actually do a race, you're going to have to train a model. The second part is obviously the racing itself. Okay, so in both of those environments, we've got three options. So let's just quickly have a look at training first. So firstly, we can always do an in-person workshop. So similar to the DRP session that you could go to during the summit, this is where we all get together in a room. We'll do firstly the presentation, then how reinforcement learning works, an introduction to DeepRacer, and then actually partake in a workshop where we will create your first models. We can also do this workshop via a live virtual event. Okay, so not a in-person event with COVID and potentially some restrictions. We could do a virtual event as well. The advantage of the in-person or the live virtual event is that you will have a professional instructor that's done training before to help guide participants in the process. Okay, so it gives them an opportunity to ask questions, get some answers, and get their first training model or first model trained successfully. The last option in training is that there is an e-learning module. So if you go to AWS.training, there's a number of e-learning modules where participants can train on their own time. So if you want to do it over a weekend or after hours, something like that, there's an option to kind of do that as well. Don't have to be in person. All of these are great ways to get started with DeepRacer and getting your first model built. When we talk about racing as well, there's three options in that space as well. Again, the in-person race, sometimes a little bit tricky. As you would see in the expo hall, you do need quite a big space to have a track set up. But there's a number of options around that as well. So please speak to your account team if that is something you would like to do. We also have the virtual leaderboard or the community racing type event. In that instance, you're going to set up an event. Top 3 people is going to be identified. They can race and submit models as many times as they want and at any times that they want, as long as it's within the parameters of the race organizer. Okay, so very easy to do. No requirement to have anybody present during that session. And then lastly, the live stream race on something like Twitch. Okay, so in that event, we can set up hour or two, set up racing, which is the virtual environment racing. The advantage of that is that participants still get to control the speed of the car, similar to what they would do in the live event, just in the virtual space, and it's at least streamed, bringing teams together and making it a little bit more exciting and competitive. So there's multiple ways of running events for your organization as well, and this is really customizable and to whatever your requirements are. So my proposal here, or my best advice here is, please speak to your account team if you are interested in a DeepRacer event. They will be able to arrange the the best event that suits your organization based on how you want to run it. But I'm going to look at a few examples for you in this space. So firstly, if we've got a quite a large team and we kind of want to whittle it down to maybe a few winners, or they spread across various locations, what we can do is we can have the virtual workshop on something like a Monday. This generally is like a 120 to 190 minute session where, like I mentioned, participants will get the opportunity to first look through a deeper dive into DeepRacer and reinforcement learning, and then actually partake in a workshop where they will have structured labs that will guide them through building their first model. We can then allow attendees to submit models and compete in a virtual community race event for the rest of that week. So this gives them the opportunity to first take the learnings they had, run their first models, kind of see what the results are, but then use the time that they've got left to basically refine that model and get a better racing experience or get a better time on the actual leaderboard. Again, like I mentioned, this is for big teams, so like 30 or more people, and we want to whittle it down to a few winners. So by the Friday, we can kind of identify the top 10 winners, and what we will do is we'll set up a new community race specifically for the top 10 winners on a different track. The advantage of this is it kind of expands their skills again beyond just that first track, and they can really see if their model is adaptable to different environments, and if it's not, there's obviously some additional learning they need to do to make that model adaptable to different tracks. The idea then again is give them a week to kind of refine that model, test it out before you announce the winners the following week. Okay, so kind of a 2-week span to whittle it down first from a large group to the top 10 to the winners. If we look at the community race leaderboard, you will kind of see that the races details are there. They do have the option that after they've submitted the model to actually go and watch their race through the recorded video. So this kind of gives them an idea of how that car really performed on track. Again, how did they get to that best time? As mentioned, they do have the opportunity to submit the model or refined models as many times as they want, as long as that race is open and available to them. If we then look at a live virtual race format, so that second format where I kind of mentioned that Twitch is an option, again, similar to the first scenario, we could have the workshop on like a Monday, and this is for teams that again is quite large or below 30. It's kind of the two options here, depending on if you want to first whittle them down or have them, and just a few racing in the live event, or if you've got a little bit more time to have the racing done, you could still have that large team. Just take into account that it takes about 5 minutes per racer to get them through the process and racing. So Monday to Friday, again, the attendees will have the opportunity to train and tweak their models and submit them to the console. And the plan here is then on a Friday, so it's a shorter span, just a week. On the Friday, you'll have the live racing. So in this event, we've got about a 2-hour span, giving the racers some opportunity to race. Like I mentioned, if we're working on about 5 minutes per racer, you can work out that how much time you would need for the actual amount of races to get them through the whole process. So the decision really is if you want to whittle it down or have all participants do the live racing. If we look at the leaderboard example, kind of similar, this is for very large teams. Again, where you could run the workshop, do the training. What we will do in this event is, again, on a Friday, first whittle them down to that top 10 races, and then move into the live event where only the top 10 people will partake in the actual event. So not everybody gets to do the live racing, only the top 10 winners gets to do that. Other options you do have in this space as well is instead of working as individual developers or data scientists, you can actually get the teams to work together or get resources to work together as teams. Okay, so there's an option as well to team them up. So it's really a question of what event's best for you if we're talking about virtual events. Okay. There are many options, and like I mentioned, please do not think this is the only ways of doing it and the timelines are fixed. We can definitely customize this based on your organization's requirements, size, locations. So there's many options in terms of how you kind of want to put these events together. The basics of an event is that you need to plan for between $30 and $50 per participant, and this is for training and storage of their models. Model training is around $3.50 per hour, and storage is 0.23 cents per gig, standard S3 storage costs. Okay, so it's kind of what you need to plan for the event. The longer the event runs, obviously those costs will change because participants will have more time to do some training. Again, if you're using the multi-account feature, you can set up budgets, and basically once that budget is reached, the training will be paused and nobody could train further, kind of making sure that your cost is managed and doesn't go over a specific budget that you might have. If we look at the in-person events, there is basically a number of options again, but the most popular one is similar to what we do at summits, is where participants get together in the morning, do the 90 to 120 minutes training, presentation and training, so they get their hands on, build their models, and then in the afternoon have a physical track at the location where they get an opportunity to actually do some racing. Again, if you want to experience this, the best option I can tell you, or have a look at it, is please go down to the expo hall, back right corner. You will see the 2 DeepRacer tracks, and you will kind of have an experience in terms of how they look, how they operate. So please go have a look out there as well. The workshop can also be customized again. So we can have a look at something like where there's a workshop on the Monday, and maybe on a Wednesday have the follow-up racing. So it doesn't have to happen in a single day as well. Okay, so it can be expanded. We can also look at expanding this even further. So if we look at like something like what we call custom format, but it is similar to some of the others, what we can do, again, an on-prem roadshow type scenario. So we can do multiple trainings in multiple locations. So again, maybe you're a big global organization, you've got some teams in Europe, some teams in the States, and other locations in the world. What you can do is arrange workshops for each of those teams, different days and their locations. So it's an in-person workshop. We can then run the virtual racing for a period of time. So you could take those teams and whittle them down to your top 10 or 20 or whatever you want at that stage, and then set up an in-person event where only the top racers get to race again. So similar to what we do at summits and with reInvent, where at summits teams have or participants have the opportunity to race. At the summit, the top 2 gets whittled down into a regional race. The regional top 3 goes to reInvent. Okay, so many options in terms of how we could carve this out for your teams and make sure that it's engaging and informative. So again, you need to decide what is the best option for your organization and in terms of how you would like to plan this. What I can say is that you can either reach out to your account team or directly to the DeepRacer pit crew, and I will give you some details at the end of this presentation to set up one of these events for you. All of these teams are always very interested and keen to have a discussion with you in terms of how they could assist you in making sure that your teams get upskilled. Similar to the virtual events as well, the same costs apply when we're talking about training and model hosting. It's that $30 to $50 depending on how long you want to run the event. So there's some budgeting you need to think about, as well as just take into account that to get a track at your location might add additional costs, depending on what options you want to use there. So what I can say is start planning your event. Speak to your account team or speak to the DeepRacer events team directly, and they will be more than happy to assist you in sorting out, setting up an event for your team. There is some resources. The slide decks will be available after the summit, so please have a look at that. But there's a number of resources that I've included here as well for you. So firstly, the multi-user account management that we spoke about, explaining how you could set up a single AWS account and have that assigned or allocated to multiple people in your organization so they can start getting training today and you could still manage the costs of that account. There's also a live racing setup guide. So if you are interested in hosting your own events, so if you're looking at some of the virtual events with the live racing, all of that components are free when you start setting that up. Community racing, there is no cost to that. So there's a really great guide. They'll explain to you all of the different components, how to use the templates, and how to set up that live racing onto like a Twitch channel, how to invite people to that channel as well. There is additional resources that you can have a look at, like enterprise events, and I will also implore you to join the Slack community. There's really good information on the Slack community and a number of resources there that could explain their experience and how it's worked out for them as an organization. There's also the GitHub labs. So all of the labs that you will be doing in the actual workshop itself is available on GitHub. So it is open resources today if you want to run one of these events just on your own within your organization. And as I mentioned at the start, there's a number of training options as well. So if we look at the AWS.training, once you log in there, there's an option around Skills Builder, which will take you and your resources through a learning path based on their background, speciality, or their interests. There's over 500 free digital courses there today, making it really simple for you to find something that you'll be interested in, and expanding your horizons, not just on AI and ML, but also on other AWS services if they're of interest. And then once you've done some of the training or attended some of the digital courses, it's always a good option to start looking at some of the certification options out there as well. So from foundational, as a cloud practitioner, just having the foundational knowledge of cloud, you can work your way through all of the certifications up to a speciality certification if that is of interest. With that, I would like to say thank you very much for joining this session. I'm going to be up front, so if you've got questions about setting up an event at your organization, please come up front. I can kind of guide you. Otherwise, if you're interested in more about DeepRacer and training potentially your own first model, go and have a look at the DRP 203 session, and they will kind of take you through a deeper dive into DeepRacer, but also help you create your first model that you can go and race in the Expo Center. Thank you very much for your attendance, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit.